Health apps and devices, I love them all, but they can be really helpful, but also can be stress inducing. Here's what I use to track my health. Now, in the last episode, I shared how I'd been tracking my glucose levels and my overall health, especially as I come out of that awful cold. Well, today I want to share a little bit more about how I use these health tools on a daily basis. They provide a lot of information, but sometimes a lot of that information can also be overwhelming. I'm going to share what I currently use and other options that I've tried as well. Now, all of this will be in my show notes and the links below. Now, keep in mind, some of these are affiliate links. I might get a little something if you decide to purchase using that link. And I don't recommend anything that I wouldn't use myself or have used and found useful. Now, let's start with the CGM. So I currently have mine on right now. It's back here. A CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. A CGM is a wearable. You basically apply it to your body. It's very easy, virtually painless. Usually the back of the arm is where you'd put it, and it provides a glucose reading intermittently to an app for about 10 to 15 days. It depends on which one you get. Now, I'm currently using Stelo by Dexcom. I'm currently not affiliated with them. The device, or what they call a biosensor, is super helpful for people to help manage their glucose levels. I also, as a side note, I think that measuring your glucose levels is better than just trying to lose weight. Decades of trying to lose weight and then gaining it back, not really knowing that the weight is maybe not the best measurement of health. Anyway, I think glucose is great. You can make a lot of changes and you can feel pretty soon after you make those changes, like what feels good and what doesn't. Amazing what food can do to you. Now, their app is super simple to use. I think it's super effective for what's currently there. I know quite a bit about glucose levels and glucose management, but it has the basics. You can add events, you can track meals, your activity, add notes to it. It also notates your glucose timeline, so it gives you a nice timeline of what your glucose levels are. You can set the range that you're in so that you can see whether your glucose levels are within or outside of the range. It's got a great resource to help you understand and learn what glucose is and what it does to our bodies. So it's got a great learning section. It shares data with your Apple Health. So it knows when you've exercised, when you've eaten. And more importantly, it has notifications. You can set it and it'll let you know when your glucose is spiking. So when your glucose levels are rapidly rising, and it'll remind you to, hey, pay attention and note what's potentially causing. What are you doing right there and then that is potentially causing that? You could either log a meal, an activity, or put a note down. The other day, I was working out in a fasted state. I am still getting over this awful cold, and I was working really hard. It was spiking. I think my body was like creating a bunch more glucose to help me get through that workout. I just noted, hey, I'm in the middle of a workout, and during that workout, I was feeling super tired. It helps you know like what might be causing those spikes, and then also helps you think about like, what am I feeling at that moment? You can also note that there. Stelo, like I said, is the one I'm currently using. A true beginner, you might also consider NutriSense. It's actually one app and system that I reviewed many years ago when they first came out. I really like them, and actually in my show notes, I still have a discount code, so definitely use that. And if you decide to use them, I might get a little bit of something. I still think that the service is really great. You do get a dietitian, great support, especially if you're just starting to learn about glucose levels and you need somebody to talk to. I loved the person that was assigned to me. I think her name was Molly, but we had great conversations and she really helped walk me through some of my numbers and understanding things that I didn't really know. One of the things that I learned from NutriSense was deviation. So from when I spike, the changes with my meals from when I'm at baseline to after I eat, the goal is not to, well, you definitely don't want to spike, but if you are going to raise your blood sugar, maybe it should just be within a certain range. So my range was, I tried not to let it go up 30 points and really tried to minimize the amount of spiking that was going on. So that was one of the things I learned. I learned a bunch of other stuff. It was an aha moment and really helped me focus on the types of food that I was eating. So make sure to check them out. Again, there's going to be a link in the show notes. Another way to learn about your glucose level is also through a blood glucose monitor where you actually prick your finger. I have one, and it's called the Keto Mojo, and it tests your glucose and your ketones. I use this mainly if I'm questioning the accuracy of my CGM. I will sometimes prick and then do a comparison to just make sure that the numbers are aligned. The great thing about this one is not only it measures your glucose levels, but also you have another stick that you can use to measure your ketones. When my glucose levels come down enough, I do start to check my ketones to see if I'm in a fat burning state. A few weeks ago, when I was hitting the 80s average, I was actually also testing my ketones because I wanted to know, okay, am I in fat burning? Which I did. I hit it a few times. But since I've been sick, since my glucose levels are high, it doesn't matter. I'm not in fat burning. My glucose levels are high enough that that's what is my body's using for energy, which is glucose. So I don't use that all the time, but I do use it on occasion. And actually, if you keep listening, I'll probably continue as soon as I can get my glucose levels to that ease range. The next thing that I use is this Oura ring. I love this wearable. Been using it for, I think, almost 4 years. This is still the Gen 3. I started off with Gen 2. It's a ring and you wear it. I actually ended up not using one of my other wearables, which is the Withings Scan Watch. And I'm going to still leave a link below. I'm not going to really talk about that too much today, but it's also another great device. But the Oura Ring it's great. It focuses on 3 scores: redness, your sleep, and activity. Now, I don't look at all those 3. I mean, I look at it, but I try to focus only on 1 at a time or 2 at a time. It has tons of information, and you wear it obviously on your finger. I liked it because it's just on your hand. You don't have to worry about it. The battery lasts for many days. I tend to charge it when I'm sitting at my desk, so every few days I'll sort of pop it off and just make sure to charge it. So super easy to use and to charge. When I was sick, I was actually prioritizing my sleep a lot, making sure that I was getting to bed early. I would also continue to look at the quality of my sleep. Obviously, just getting to bed early helped, but it wasn't quite there because I was coughing quite a bit while I was, at the height of my illness. So other things it measures is your heart rate and your HRV. And it just measures even your sleep latency when you get to bed and then when you finally fall asleep, and your oxygen levels, and all that information drives a sleep score. And needless to say, while I was sick, my sleep score really sucked. It was down low, in the teens, because I pretty much wasn't sleeping because I was having these coughing fits. So it was about a week of really poor sleep and just could not quite get that rest. Anyway, based on your sleep and your readiness, if your sleep score and your activity is pretty low, then it'll affect your readiness score as well. And what it did was it actually recommended I turn on rest mode so that it wouldn't measure those things and kind of stress me out, which was great. Yeah, it clearly knew that I was not feeling well. And the app does do this symptoms radar, and where basically it looks at your symptoms and kind of says, hey, your temperature is up a little bit high, so maybe you're not feeling well. Pay attention and take it easy. So that's another great thing about this wearable, is that it sort of gives you a heads up. And actually, the last 2 times that I've had COVID in the last 3 years, it had warned me. Symptom radar will go off and just say, hey, maybe you're not feeling well, or, keep an eye out because we are starting to see signs that maybe you're going to be sick. And then this app that I use is not a wearable. It's a snore app, and it basically records at night, and it's called Snore Lab. Yeah, Snore Lab. And yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with this, but I actually do love this app. I hate it right now because I'm still getting over this cold, so I am snoring quite a bit. I'm also not using my mouth guard. I have a neck brace. I use a special pillow, all these things. So basically what you can do is you can say, I'm doing all these things, and then you can see if it makes a difference in your snoring. I've realized that as I've gotten older, I snore a whole lot more. So I'm trying all these different things to figure out if they help with the snoring. And typically they do, but with this cold, I've just kind of let it go in terms of not really using any of those things other than my pillow. And I find that it's good to know. Your Oura Ring will note if your oxygen levels drop somewhere in the evening, it does mark it. This is nice because I can sort of correlate when that's happening to how loud, or look in that area of the snoring and then see, okay, and listen to see, okay, did I stop breathing? Was I like in trouble breathing? And you can see, I can't even believe I'm going to play this for you, but this is what it ends up recording. Ooh, okay. We're just going to listen to that one snark and that's it. But yeah, you can tell I'm having a hard time. Maybe my neck is propped up funny, or typically I'm a back sleeper. And when I sleep on my back, I tend to snore. So I try to sleep on my side. Anyway, it's a whole thing. I think since I've been postmenopausal, my snoring has increased. I don't know. Maybe I need to go look that up. I'm not really sure. But anyway, my big thing with managing my snoring is, one, I want to make sure that I'm getting enough oxygen and that that's not something that is getting worse. And also, because I'm prioritizing sleep, it's super important that our quality of sleep is good, because it is the foundation for recovery. And if we're doing all these other things like eating well and also movement and exercising throughout the day, if we don't sleep well, then we're not really optimizing all of those things that we're doing. So prioritize your sleep, folks. It is super, super important. It helps you with not only the optimization of, those other things, but also it just really helps with stress management as well when you are rested. And it's a great way of actually starting the day feeling ready to take on whatever comes. So those are my apps and my wearables. Maybe you're wondering, well, how do you use it in the day in the life of Effie? Well, this is how I use my apps and all my tools. So in the morning, I turn off my sleep app. So I wake up, I turn it off, and I wake up and I go about my morning habits. While I'm brushing my teeth, I typically go and look at my Snoring app just to kind of see how good or bad. Sometimes I'll listen to it while I'm there. If it's particularly bad, I will spend a little bit more time listening to it after I, finish in the bathroom. And then usually when I'm sitting with my coffee, after I do my content planning, I will go back and go look at my glucose levels on my CGM and just see how it did overnight. Sometimes in the evening, it will go up depending on what you've eaten, what time you've slept, and also how the quality of your sleep sometimes can affect your glucose levels. So I kind of look at that also just to kind of see, okay, where am I this morning? Once I look at it, it encourages me to get up and go out and start my day with a morning walk. And then throughout the day, I try to log when I eat and what I've eaten into my Cello app. This one's a little bit harder. Sometimes I totally forget. I wish it had a photo because I used to do that. That was my habit, was before I would eat anything, I would take a photograph of it. So maybe I'll just do that, add that back to my list of habits that I need to work on. I don't look at it as much if I'm eating well, but I really should be paying attention to it, especially now that I'm starting to feel better and I want to, again, work on getting those glucose levels back down. So anyway, I'll go for a walk, and after I get home, I usually drink a big glass of water, and while I'm doing that, I'll check my Oura ring because it'll update and it'll ask me to confirm the activity that I just did. I don't bother start a heart rate activity when I leave my house. I find that I always forget anyways, but it will always ask me, it looks like you might have gone for a walk. And I just go ahead and confirm that in the app. And then while I'm doing that, I'll also take a sneak peek to see what my glucose levels are doing, especially after a walk. Now, your glucose levels, they're not real time. There's about a 15-minute delay. I'll look at it then, or I'll wait till later, but usually I'm out for 30 to 45 minutes. So I'll get a few readings and I'll just see what's going on with my glucose. I do have habits to stay active throughout the day. I get up and I go get water. I try not to sit for longer than 40, 45 minutes. And so while I'm getting some water from the kitchen, I'll do either squats or do this basically where I'm just hopping up and down for about 60 seconds. And then sometimes I'll also lift weights. I have my weights out right outside. I have my mat set up and I just do some arm raises or, bicep curls or some squats with the weights. And throughout the afternoon, I'll go ahead and check my glucose levels to see what the levels are. Sometimes after a stressful meeting, I'll actually also look at it just to see how much my glucose has gone up. And a couple of years ago, I had this really stressful meeting and yeah, it went up 20 points, which is kind of a lot. Take note, folks, stress will make your glucose levels go up. And then after dinner, I usually look at it again. And sometimes I'll take a walk and look at it one more time before I head to bed. It's just keeping an eye on it and just making sure that what I've eaten, how it's affecting it, etc. And then before I go to bed, I turn on my Snore app and immediately turn off my lights and focus on getting to sleep. This is where one of my habits is I try not to doom scroll, where basically I lay in bed and start scrolling. I do all my scrolling before I head downstairs to my bedroom. That's one of the habits I've been working on the last few weeks. It's definitely been helpful. Yeah. And so some days I look at these apps a lot and other times not so much. But I have the data there and I will take a look at it to help inform what do I need to work on. And I know that a certain time during the night, I know I need to get to bed because I just know generally that I need to sleep. I don't need the app to tell me that it's bedtime. I know generally when I need to start heading downstairs. And of course, let's not forget that I also track my habits in the form of a spreadsheet. And I've been sharing that with you. You can find that in the show notes. And in that one, I basically mark each day to see what I've done in my habits. And then each week I make a lot of notations about how that week is going. And I do a summary of my glucose data and habit scoring. How well did I do this week? And I mark it red or green or yellow, depending on how well I did. Basically, I try to focus on 1 to 2 metrics. I have these apps and wearables that provide a lot of information. Now that I'm trying to get better after this cold, I'm really focusing on my habit of, trying to do my exercise the way I was doing it right before I got sick. So, but looking at my glucose levels and eating I normally would, which is pretty low carb and with a little bit of intermittent fasting. And then the second thing that I'm doing is looking at my sleep score because I still have to make sure that I'm focusing on that recovery because I am still kind of just like 95% there, but I just want to make sure my sleep is good because I need to be able to recover from this cold. So those are my tools, and it helps to look at this health data and look at it a little bit differently. Pick 1 or 2 things that you want to track. You don't have to track everything. You don't have to make changes to make every single score improve. Again, don't overwhelm yourself. When I was sick, I would look at the data only a few times during the day. I tried not to stress myself out over it. I knew it would take several days, maybe even a couple of weeks, but I continued to wear my Oura ring. I continued to put on my CGM and keep an eye on those things. I could see my scores and my numbers improving. And then at some point I decided, okay, now I can start adding back those habits to see if I can get my numbers back to where my baseline was before I got sick. Now, the best tool and the best app or device or wearable is the one that you're actually going to use and look at. Try the ones that I've shared with you today. If it fits into your life, if I'm not looking at this, am I measuring the right thing? And what makes sense for you? So make sure to ask yourself, if I'm not using it, how good is it? And, can I? Is this the information that I need to help me move the needle? Now, you'll find all these tools that I talked about today in the show notes below and also in justeffy.com. Now, some of these, again, I'll just remind you, maybe affiliate links, which means I'll earn a little commission if you choose to use them. I'm Effie in progress, and I'm figuring out what works, one app, tool, wearable, and habit at a time. And I'll see you in the next one.